talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to the Mary Goulet Show, cultivating a rich interior. Now, here's Mary.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Mary Goulet, your host, and I have Sebastian Slovin here. Check out his websites. I'm going to give them both. Sebastian Slovin, SLOVIN.com, and natureunplugged.com. So let's go into the story of as much as you want to share about your father, because your book is titled Ashes in the Ocean, A Son's Story of Living Through and Learning from His Father's Suicide. Because I know that led even more deeply into the work you're doing today.
Yeah. Yeah, so to give a little background, my dad was this sort of legendary character. Grew up in South Africa, and from the get-go, he had incredible potential as an athlete. He was really successful swimmer from an early age. Ended up making the South African international team when he was, I think, 16, and then was recruited by Southern Methodist University in Dallas to swim in the United States, and swam at a very high level for a long time. Eventually made his way out to San Diego, to La Jolla in particular, and kind of took that mentality that made him great in the water and applied that to business. He was a stockbroker and was super successful. And he met my mom. My mom's from Southern California. She's wonderful. They had, I think, their relationship, it was like this perfect relationship. And then I came around.
A fabulous love affair.
Yeah.
Is the way I interpreted it.
For sure. And I came around a few years later, and when my earliest memories are just like life is perfect. For me, it was mixing it up at the, crawling around on the beach, Wind and Sea or La Jolla Cove, and swimming with my dad. And I didn't see, there was nothing wrong. It was like this perfect sort of fairy tale like upbringing. We had, my dad made good money. We traveled a lot, lived right by the beach. It was awesome. And what I came to learn later was that he had lost some money. He had a lot of his own, internal battles that he was dealing with, but really didn't show that to anyone. When I was 6 years old, he took his own life. And everything changed pretty dramatically after that for myself and for my family. I was kind of thrust into this role of being sort of the man of the house at an early age, or kind of more. I had a younger sister, so caretaker to my sister, and my mom responded heroically and kind of just did what she needed to do to get by, and worked her ass off, or I don't know if worked her tail off, I'll say, and to provide to help us out. We were left in a pretty bad financial place, and so I saw a lot less of my mom, and it's just the sort of everything was flipped upside down.
And you had to move a couple times.
We moved out of La Jolla, so that was my core community, and so we moved, and I think my response, was just overwhelm and such, sadness for like losing my dad and my hero. And
yes.
I think what I knew how to, my response was to just try and not feel, to sort of numb what was coming up and
steel thyself and get through it.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, build a fortress, put the walls up. And I think that was probably necessary maybe when I was very young, but that, remained in place for many years, and it became clear as I got older that, this wasn't serving me well.
So what was the turning point that you realized I probably should face my grief?
Yeah. I mean, just to sort of expand on that a little more, kind of where I was at when this was happening was so in addition to not really talking, trying to not talk about it or not talk about my dad, I became, as I got older and became more aware of, what suicide was. When I was 6, I didn't really couldn't really comprehend it. I kind of felt like there was something wrong with me by association. I didn't talk about it, but I felt this like connection to my dad I felt like predestined to go down his path. Mm-hmm. If things didn't go right for me, that was my way out. And maybe
that was your default.
That was my default. And I had developed this very strong belief that was the way I was going to go. And And I think, to answer your question, I think when I was in high school, I, again, wasn't really dealing with what I was feeling, wasn't talking about it. And the way that manifested for me was drinking a lot, in social events that drinking was a way for me to feel less scared or to not feel,
Sure.
And kept a bottle of vodka under my bed for a long time throughout high school and
Oh, geez.
yeah, nuts. And
Yeah.
And as I got older, I contemplated suicide myself, and I think I got close. I do feel like I couldn't do that just knowing what that would do to my mom and my sister.
But was it the idea that you thought you were predestined, so you kind of like, well, I guess this is the way it's going to be? Or did anything really significant happen that was like a snapping point?
I mean, I feel like it was a general, I would call it like a victim mentality.
Okay, fair enough.
I think that was a lot of what, I kind of felt like, and that manifested in a lot of ways too. Like didn't do that well in school. This is to be expected of me because I had this trauma as a
Sure.
child. I think that was a big part of it. I also want to say that I was very fortunate to have an outlet in the ocean, which I think
Yes.
saved my life. And a lot of my memories, as I mentioned, of my dad were in and around the ocean. When he died, he was cremated, and we spread his ashes in the ocean at La Jolla Cove.
Nice.
Hence the
Yep.
title. And after that, while life on land was pretty tough for me, if I could get back to the ocean, it was like my time to be with my dad again and my refuge. And I spent as much time as I could, especially during tough times, out in the water, and that really, I think, saved me. And eventually, got really into bodyboarding,
Yeah.
boogie boarding,
Yeah.
and started to compete, and that was sort of my thing that kept me going.
Well, as you say in your own websites, nature is, you don't say this, but I do. Nature is God. Nature is
Yeah.
everything bigger than us that can soothe our soul. We all need to soothe our soul in whatever way we can in a natural way.
Absolutely.
Because, yes, like you mentioned, we could drink too much, stay too much on our phones, escaping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so then in your journey, you felt compelled to go to different parts of the world?
Yeah, I think that a big turning point for me was toward the end of high school. I was doing a lot of bodyboarding. I had the opportunity to go to Australia to do some bodyboarding and to visit with some family and family friends over there. And that's actually where my dad died. He died
Okay.
in Perth. So he was, my family and my mom and sister and I were in San Diego. He was in Perth. And took this trip to Perth, and I was really thrilled with the opportunity to go and surf some amazing waves. And I was terrified because I knew, going to this place would put me face to face with a lot of the things I had been running away from.
Sure.
And I happened to stay with some really close family friends. Actually, a gentleman named John David, who was a close friend of my dad's growing up in South Africa. I stayed with he and his wife. And my first day there, he asked me if I wanted to go on a walk just throughout the neighborhood. And they have this beautiful river down by their house. And we go on this walk. It's incredibly beautiful. And I'm, appreciating the moment and kind of terrified that he's going to bring up my dad, and I kind of am waiting for it. And sure enough, after some small talk, he starts talking about my dad and how amazing he was as a person, and how difficult the loss was on him and his family, and how he imagined it was on us. And I didn't say anything, and I just kind of kept quiet. And just to clarify, up to this point, I had hardly ever talked about my dad at all. Mm-hmm. And John David shares with me that his father, John David's father, took his own life when he was a boy, and opened up about what that was like for him. And a lot of the stuff was exactly what I was feeling. Like a lot of his initial, he felt like he couldn't talk about it in his, where he grew up, in his community. There was a huge stigma around it. He didn't talk about it for many years. And then eventually he came to face it, found the strength to face it and process it and deal with it. And that was so incredible for me to see an example of someone who had been through what I went through and came out the other side. And also that, I think, inspired me because he went first, took the first step. That inspired me to share my own, all the stuff I had been holding on to. And it was the first time really I kind of let go and opened up, and it was this incredibly cathartic.
I was going to say, wasn't it a relief?
Yeah, I mean, it was like I had been carrying around bricks,
Yes.
like a backpack full of rocks most of my life.
And it's real.
Yeah.
You're carrying around all these emotions and stuffing them into your energetic system and your organs. And once you start releasing that through crying, writing, just feeling.
For sure. Yeah.
It's healing. And
Yeah.
it's necessary because otherwise we get stuck in that. So what, if anything, happened when you came back to America?
Yeah, I mean, a ton happened when I came back. That was, I think, a major turning point. And I think, John David kind of challenged me a little bit after. He's like, don't run away from this. And I think, and he kind of encouraged me to see what I could learn from it, to step into it. And so when I came back, I, literally on the way home, on the flight home, I made a list of people who I could talk to about my dad. People who knew him from different areas of life. And I set out on this journey, and it was, just one conversation at a time. I met with someone a good family friend who was a guy who worked with him for a long time, and
Oh, we did it again, didn't we?
Did it again.
We get so caught up in the conversation that I looked up and it was 2 seconds. That's my fault. All right, you're listening to The Mary Goulet Show. We'll be right back with more from Sebastian. Stay tuned.
Thank you. By listening, you help prove that content marketing works. You need to engage your customers. We provide the solution. Contact Wade at WSRadio.com or call 866-WS-RADIO.
If you heard that sound, you probably are eligible for insurance from Navy Mutual, insuring the men and women of the Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard. Here's what one policyholder, retired Navy Commander Thomas Dade, had to say.
Navy Mutual is the best insurance decision I ever made. I wish you had a savings plan available that earned the rates my Navy Mutual insurance has been earning.
Navy Mutual Aid Association, started by military members in 1879, serves active, reserve, and retired military today. Navy Mutual honors our military by providing them affordable life insurance with the features they need without fine print, sales fees, or military service restrictions. Value, integrity, trust, and stability are the cornerstones on which our commitment to you and your loved ones are built. Call Navy Mutual at 1-800-628-6011 or NavyMutual.org for your personal life insurance plan consultation. 1-800-628-6011 or NavyMutual.org. Navy Mutual, insuring those who serve.
Which sandwich is healthy and tasty? Which sandwich can come on bread or in a bowl? Which sandwich comes 51 different ways, so it's always your way? A which sandwich. Stop into our shop in Hazard Center. We're upstairs from the Hazard Center Digiplex. Bring in your movie ticket. We will add a free drink and chips to your sandwich order. Or order online at whichwich.com, and we will have it ready and waiting. WHICH, whichwich.com.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, VinVillage.com, where wine lovers connect. Be sure to tune in weekly to Vin Village Radio for exclusive, in-depth interviews with the who's who in wine and food.
I can't speak more highly about Progressive Medical Center and how they've helped me get my health back, get my energy back. And Dr. Agoli, when I first came to you guys, you found a thyroid problem, and I had no clue, but that's really common with a lot of your patients, right?
Underactive thyroid is the most misdiagnosed condition in the United States. According to the American Academy of Endocrinology, well over 25% of the population is not being diagnosed properly. It's because of the testing parameters. If you go to your traditional doctor, they could be missing a key component. If you have crushing fatigue, inappropriate weight gain, cold hands, cold feet, losing hair, lack of concentration, even headaches and migraines could be caused by underactive thyroid. At Progressive Medical, we get to the root cause of the problem because we are integrative, and integrative medicine is good medicine. We use a combination of medication, natural supplements, diet, nutrition, lifestyle modification, and that's what makes it so unique because we tailor it to your personal needs, and that's interesting because you are tailored.
Yes, and if you want to get your energy back, be the most vibrant version of yourself, you got to get to Progressive Medical Center. I'm so glad I went. Contact him today through progressivemedicalcenter.com.